Yep. Gonna have to write a report on that.
Do you have to file a report for those?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't figure you did.
Yep. This is what it looks like when I don't care.
Yeah, I bet.
Got to do what you got to do.
That's true, sir. You got to do what you got to do. Good morning and welcome to this Monday morning edition to Coffee and Bang with Rich and Will. Good morning,
sir. Will. Good morning, brother. How are you today?
Once again, better than I deserve.
Awesome. Always glad to hear it. So,
yeah,
we got quite the show today. We're gonna. I think it was Mark last week that brought up. What would we do if we were king for the day?
Yeah,
and
I think it was Matt. Matt Sims.
Was it Matt? Okay.
Yeah,
I can't remember who it was for sure. So I have one slide, and you have a plethora of slides on that. So
I'm an overachiever, like Dr. T.C. Fuller, who's on this.
Yes. Who has written 2 books and has a third going through the approval process, if memory serves.
That is correct, and it's now on Audible. So if you don't like to read the written word, please check out Painting Over Rust, Dr. Fuller's 20-year odyssey in the FBI on Audible now. And actually, if you're a member of Audible, like I am, and maybe a lot of people watching this morning, it's free.
And I will tell you, I have, as you guys know, I'm remodeling down here, and I have improved upon Dr. Fuller's book with drywall dust all over mine.
Look at that.
So yeah, it's an enhancement. It's one of a kind.
Painting over drywall dust.
Yes, absolutely. Which does not work well.
No.
So so looking forward to that third book. Who did the narration on the on Painting Over Rust?
I believe it's an AI generated. And it's fantastic. I started listening to it last night. Craig Holland is on from the UK. Ted Leonard is on. Coin number 1461 says, make a list and checking it twice. Our brother Alan Kelly out there in occupied Virginia is on. He is coin number 1571. Will, what is a coin number?
A coin number. Oh boy, I'm going to embarrass myself here. I know it's around here. Hold on. Yeah, sorry. The remodeling is just taking over my life down here. I can't. Oh my gosh. I'm going to put myself on half rations of Bang.
We can't have that.
This is embarrassing. I mean, if I fall over asleep, we'll know what happened.
I got you covered, brother.
All right. Thanks, brother. Yeah. So the coin gets you access to the training vault. All the great stuff that's in there. White belt to blue belt and BJJ. You got home clearing. You got vehicle defense. Most important of those is the assessment, though. Let's go through, see where you might be lacking in your skills. And then you can go to the particular area you need to enhance and work through those skills. Become a better defender for yourself and your family.
We need it now more than ever, perhaps.
Yep.
Going into some uncharted territory coming up here. Please like, comment, share. If you're watching us this morning on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. Get that bell icon so it alerts you and all that fun stuff. Mark Ruddle is on from Australia. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Mark.
Hope you're doing well on the other side of the world there. We haven't really decided what we were going to do, so I will make a command decision, sir, and let's jump into your slideshow first. Will's going to get us caught up on the economy. Tell us what he would do if he was dictator for a day to fix the economy, and then Rich is going to take you down a slippery slope of what would happen if you let me be a dictator for a day.
And then you guys can decide who to vote for to be dictator for a day. Will Rose is on. Welcome, sir. So Fear Greed Index 78. NVIDIA earnings last week, which were a surprise to the upside. I don't know how much of a surprise it was. It was pretty well telegraphed. I think the stock was up 15% in a day. So now that's driven everything else up now because, all is right and just in the world because one company did a great job. And NVIDIA, for what it's worth, everybody thinks they make chips. And matter of fact, a week ago, I thought they made chips. They do not. They design chips. Their operating margin is something like 78%, brother.
Oh,
yeah. Hence all the money they make. But they're the only ones who are designing chips that can do all the AI stuff.
Damn.
Right. Yeah, nobody can catch up with them. Yeah, they have very, very few employees for the $24 billion they're bringing in a quarter in revenue. I forget the exact number of employees, but it's very low for that kind of revenue. So good for them.
Well, it's like the lithography machines that make the chip manufacturing. It's 100% market share. It's a Dutch company, and shame on me, I cannot remember the name of it. Then you've got TSMC, which makes
Mhm.
chips there in Taiwan, and they've got like 60 something percent of the market.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me NVIDIA, the design of the chips is what you say, 70 something percent?
78%
Wow.
operating margin. So yeah, so their gross margin is 78%.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Good for them, man.
So yep. Hey, if you can do it, more power to you.
Yeah,
If we jump back there, we'll back one there, brother.
of course.
So this is where we've seen. This is what's pushing the stock market right now. It's growth stocks. Can you read that off for us, man?
Absolutely. A corporate equity investment instrument, which usually does not pay substantial dividends, but which increases in value as the company grows, and which typically appeals to investors who have a long-term perspective, like your old pal Rich Brown.
All right. So if we dig into this, does not pay substantial dividends. This would be your tech stocks right now. It's been other things in the past, but right now it's tech stocks for the most part. Increase in value as the company grows. We've seen what's happening with NVIDIA, Apple, the Magnificent Seven. Those seven stocks that are pushing the whole market right now. It's really down to five at this point because Tesla isn't doing much. And it typically appeals to investors who have a long-term perspective because these companies continue to grow. And we're not really, as when we're looking at growth, I'm more interested in the rate of return per year of the stock, not the 1% or even 2% dividend. I'd rather go get in a stock that's going up, 25x a year.
Mm.
And here's one for you. Everybody talks about NVIDIA, and I may goof this number up a little bit. I believe in the last, I forget the period of time now. I'm going to say the last 5 years, but I'm probably wrong on that. It's up like 178x.
NVIDIA is?
Yeah.
Wow.
Celsius, the energy drinks, is up like 450x. Just blows it away.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. That went from like
Jeez.
14 cents a share to $64 and change.
My God.
So, and that's the power of a growth stock, right?
Yeah.
The problem is usually your growth stocks are also what will lead you into bubbles because all people care about is what's it doing this week, this month, today, this year. They're not looking at any long-term sustainability, and usually that's when the market gets frothy, and it takes a long time to get there. If you think about the tech bubble that crashed in 2000, that was growth stocks. That was tech again. So, and it took 17 years to get back to those levels.
Yeah,
So,
I remember. I
yeah.
got hurt on that one. Hey, let's welcome some folks onto the show.
Yes, let's.
Tony is on. Gold members in the house. Good morning, Razmik. Matt Sims. Good morning, Matt. Thank you for posing that question to Will and I. I know you tied me up quite a bit this weekend working on that answer. So thanks, Matt. Will Parker is on. Good morning. He is out there in Montana.
All right. Welcome, everyone. All right, we can go to the next one there, brother. So this is it's a busy chart. It goes back to 94. So we got good historical perspective here. This is the growth of growth stocks year over year change. So it's going to be a relatively volatile chart. But what we want to look at is when is it overbought? When is it getting frothy? When is it a bubble? And you can see where we are now on the far right of the chart. This is the AI bubble is what's starting to get called out there. And you can see we're up there pretty good. The only time it was higher than that is the tech bubble in the late 90s.
Speaking of AI, did you see the Google AI went full on racist over the last week?
No, I did not see that.
Hell, you should. It's pretty crazy, man. It's what happens when you let a bunch of leftists design AI. It's completely racist, and Google has come out and apologized profusely. But anyway, I'll let you guys decide for yourselves. Google's AI being racist. It's fantastic.
Well, there's a reason I don't use Google unless I have to. I use DuckDuckGo because they don't track anything you do.
Yeah, that's nice.
So we can see here at this ratio of 1.63 where we're currently at. It's in I'm going to round the number here, guys. We're in the 97th percentile for growth. Growth stocks is a factor of crowding. So this is the crowding. How crowded are these trades? So this is also a element of passive investing. When a person buys $100 worth of the S&P 500 index, something like $16 of that goes into Apple. So that just keeps crowding. People think they're really diversified when they're doing that, and they're really not. because you get crowded into these stocks that make up the majority of an index. You can even run into that problem with there's a tech ETF XLK, and I believe Microsoft, Nvidia, and Apple. I believe those are the top 3 holdings, and those 3 stocks make up 40-something% of that ETF that's supposedly diversified.
So much for diversification there.
Yep, but but then but people don't care as long as it keeps going up, right? When it starts coming down, people suddenly care and they sell out, and so this crowding is when it gets to extremes, it's a threat. And
is there a fund manager that manage ETFs? I mean, I hate to show my ignorance here, but
there are.
Okay.
And it used to be back in the day, like if a fund manager left a fund, I would sell it immediately, because that fund manager, usually some of their staff goes with them, people that are loyal to them. And the fund manager was really the secret sauce behind the return of a given mutual fund or ETF. Nowadays, though, in a lot of cases, their hands are tied. If they have a technology ETF and tech starts doing poorly, usually in the prospectus, they have to be like 98% plus invested. So they don't have any choice. Even if they see bad things coming, they can't sell. They're not allowed to under their prospectus. That's the contract with the client.
Okay.
So it's and so we've gone from pretty active investing as far as the funds were allowed to do. The fund managers were allowed to do a lot. Now it's passive. You buy the S&P 500 or you buy this or that, and there isn't any human behind that. I believe it's over 50% now is passive flows, and that's great when it works. And then when it stops working, it's going to stop working real bad.
Okay, now might be a great time to thank you to the 12 folks watching us live, to anyone that may be new to the show and going, I know Rich Brown and Will. What the hell are they talking about? Passive income and bubbles and stuff like that. This is the American Warrior show, man. I thought you guys were about self-defense. Why are we talking about the economy every single Monday morning?
Because this knowledge and ability to see the possible outcomes of what's happening is a great way to defend your family. Because if your savings disappear, if let's say you have some money invested, whether it be a 401k, IRA, and all of a sudden that takes a big hit, well, that's part of how you provide for your family. And there's the critical
leading indicators, right? I mean,
absolutely.
If you start talking about, think about this for a second, folks. Listen, if Will says shipping is increasing by X percentage, and we ask why, well, they can't just go through the Suez Canal. They got to go around the Cape of Hope. Why? Because the Houthis are attacking the shipping coming to. Why are they doing that? And we start pulling that thread, and you find out, oh, there's a bigger threat going on.
Right.
That you wouldn't know unless you looked at these economic indicators and they started screaming and red warning lights going on.
Absolutely. Great way to put that, brother. And, it allows us to prepare our families. We've talked a lot about the demographics changing, what's probably coming with this election. I would say is certainly coming with this election cycle. These are threats to our families. And, we need to be able to foresee these problems ahead so that we're not in these bad situations. Don't stop at the gas station at 2 a.m. if you don't have to, right?
Well said.
So this is a very crowded trade as of this time. This is from JP Morgan, so it's not, some doom and gloom site. And let's face it, JP Morgan, biggest bank right now. They've got some assets under management for sure. And they get paid a lot of money because they pay attention to stuff like this.
Yes, they do. They are one of your friendly neighborhood GSIBs.
Yes, they are. Globally systemic important banks. Too big to fail. Yeah. Kyle's on.
Hey, Kyle. Glad to have you, sir.
All right. Let's go to the next one here.
Ouch.
All right. Yes. So this one is a 6-month change. So each point on this chart looks back at 6 months ago from that time and plots the change. So it's going to be a busy chart. That's the lighter blue line there. If you can make that one out, it's a little tough to make out there. That's the 6-month change. And then the darker blue you can see better is the 6-month average. So that smooths things out a little bit. What we're looking at here, guys, is the same thing with the growth stock. So this is just a 6-month look back change. The other one was overall positioning. Okay. This is just the rate of change. How quickly is that changing into, in this case, the top 10 stocks index weight? Okay. Does that make sense, brother?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, this is crowding. So this is how much of the money in the stock market is going into the top 10 stocks. And you can see going back to 1964, we are at an all-time high
of crowding.
Okay. So in other words, this is because let's say we've got $10,000 to invest. Well, right now it'd be kind of stupid not to put a good chunk of that into NVIDIA. Right? It'd be kind of stupid not to put a big chunk of that into Apple, Google, Tesla, take your pick. Okay. I would have a ranking order in there, but we don't do financial advice. So, and then what happens? It goes up because all these people did that with their 10,000 here, 2,000 here, what have you. Well, eventually it gets to the point where that stock prices run up way too far for the money that company earns. And that's when you get a bubble, whether that's tulip bulbs or Apple stock, doesn't matter.
Tech to me is so fragile, right? Because it operates on the backs of our failing, fragile Chinese malware-laden power grid, right? And it's just, I could never imagine, even if the profits are very enticing to jump in on that. There's the thought of being like all in on that. And if you could read Matt's comment there.
Sure. It says, good morning. Good morning to you as well, Matt. Finances, maybe just what I need this TY. Thank you. Show my wife for her to get interested in Coffee with Rich. That's awesome. She was just looking into the S&P for us. Yep. And I don't know where you are on your financial journey, Matt. So not financial advice, of course, but, take a look around. It sounds corny and trite, but, the well-diversified portfolio over enough time, depending on the person's age, risk tolerance, so on and so forth. There's nothing wrong, I'm kind of poo-pooing. There's nothing wrong with an S&P 500 fund. The problem right now is it's getting so concentrated. And that's the threat right now. So it's coming into the election, the turmoil. Honestly, I don't know how that's going to shake out. Obviously, no crystal ball, but it's going to be very interesting to see the dynamic between the Federal Reserve wanting to bring inflation down and the Biden administration and Congress wanting to keep the money flowing everywhere for their reelection. And part of that is the putting that money into the economy is going to help keep the stock market up as well. So you've got two opposing forces here, both of which are quite powerful.
Okay, yeah, and my advice to Matt and those of you out there, and I'm sure everybody's investing on some level, whether it's a Roth IRA or 401k, or you're a quasi day trader like Will is, that he has a hobby of flying commercial airlines. That's not his real job. His real job is day trading.
My real job right now is remodeling this room, to be honest with you, and it's going very slowly.
Well, and Tony says he misses your fireplace background. Is that coming back?
It will eventually. That's further down the to-do list, but I've got plans to help you out there, Tony. I just forgot to do it this week. I'm sorry, but I got something for you, brother.
Okay, good. What I was going to say is, Matt, and those of you that are thinking about this, please read, and I say it every week, The Psychology of Money, because I'm like a broken record to my friends and family. Not that necessarily that you need to read that book, although it will help you on your journey, but understanding your relationship to money and also having an out. Like, when are you going to be done? And then reverse plan from there, that I want to be completely debt-free and retired with X number of income coming in per year, so that I can walk away from this and have the freedom and luxury to tell the world to kiss my rear end. And then reverse plan from that way. Because if you don't know where you're going, any destination will work. And I don't know. I think it's important to understand.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with you 100% on that. Too many people are just like, I need more. Well, that turns into FOMO, fear of missing out. So then people chase and then say, well, these 7 stocks keep going up. I'm just going to buy those. And then you end up with this crowding we're talking about. Then you end up with a bubble, which I think is where the market is. And honestly, I think this is the Moab. I think this is the mother of all bubbles going on right now.
Well, Michael Burry's been saying it for quite some time. It's an everything bubble.
Yep. And that brings up a good point. Dr. Michael Burry, famous from The Big Short, if you read The Big Short versus watch the movie, you will learn that he's a brilliant man. Understands finances very well. However, his timing is not great. He's
always early.
He's always early, in trading stocks, there's a saying: being early is the same as being wrong.
Yeah.
And he was within a few months of going insolvent during the Big Short, during all of that leading up to the housing crisis. The only thing that kept him solvent was that there was an agreement in his hedge fund that people couldn't pull their money out, and he could do whatever he wanted. So it's a fine line to walk when you're trying to time one of these things. And there's also another old saying that the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent.
Amen. And that almost killed Scion Capital, which is Burry's hedge fund. But before we go into that, the fax machine was invented, believe it or not, in the 1800s, not long after, the advent of the teletype. Electric cars came around in the early 1900s. So these companies were way ahead of their time, and they ultimately went under because they were ahead of their time. So the timing is important, which is why being a long-term investor is probably a gut. Yeah. By a Scott, by the way. Thank you, Michael. Of course, my good friend Michael Gentili's on, as is our good friend Pat Cahill is on. He is coin number 2446 from Northern Wisconsin.
Welcome, Cheesehead.
Yeah, thank you to the 16 folks watching us live. And again, if you don't want to watch us on your laptop or on your smartphone, you can always do it on your smart TV by checking us out on YouTube.
Awesome. All right, so I think we pretty much covered this one. What we're looking at here, guys, is it's just another way of looking at that concentration of stocks. This one, the other one is in the 98th percentile when we look at the overall. If we look at the 6-month rate of change, we are at an all-time high.
Ouch.
So, and this is the S&P 500 market concentration, also from JP Morgan, as we see down there at the bottom. So this is the concentration within the S&P 500 index. So let's recall that the S&P 500 is a capitalization weighted fund, meaning the larger companies get a larger share of the S&P 500. And this is how we end up with a day where, let's say Microsoft moves by 4%. Well, that's enough to move the entire S&P 500. And now, granted, every stock can move it somewhat, but the bottom 50% have almost no effect on the S&P 500, any given company, because their weighting is less in this. So what we're looking at here is the concentration within the S&P 500. And if we look at the orange line there, it's the weight of the 10 largest stocks in the S&P 500, which is currently 32.1%, which is in the 84th percentile. Well, and we can see what that's done. And this is the takeoff of tech since, 2016 or so, give or take. Really going back to 2012, it bounced around there a little bit, then it took off. Now, check this out, brother. So that's the top 10 stocks, the weighting of that have gone vertical there. The bluish line there is the weight of the 11th through the 50th stocks. So we're still talking. Remember, there's 500 in there. So we're still talking top 10%, right?
Jeez.
Look at that compared to that's down in the 16th percentile. So all the money is flowing into these top 10 stocks. And again, this concentration is a threat to the stability of the market. And by stability, I mean you'll start seeing more volatility within the market, because if people start pulling out of one of these top 10 stocks, it has a higher movement of that index. So when NVIDIA moved 15% the day after earnings, that moved the S&P, that just their portion of the S&P moved something like, I don't know, 1.5, one stock.
Jesus. Yeah. And it didn't go up, 4x. It went up 15%.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Right. So this is just another thing going on. And you can see prior to each recession, we see a bump up, right? Now that's a relative bump up. We can look at from like 73 to 82, and that recession leading into 1980, it was still a very low level of concentration, but it went up prior to that. So it's a relative thing. Sometimes it's the recession as we lead up into this is bubblish. The recession causes people to pull their money out. Sometimes the dog wags the tail, sometimes the tail wags the dog on this. But
That
either
is
way,
correct.
when we see that concentration, that's no bueno. Very technical financial term there for you.
Well, thank you for breaking it down for us, sir.
So, what JP Morgan, you'll see the argument they're actually making in this chart. If we see the dashed arrow there for that bluish line, teal line, is they're making the argument that the 11 through the 50th stocks are going to play catch up now, right?
Yeah, let's. I want to touch a couple things here.
Okay.
First of all, thank you, Eric, for being on. Always good to have you, sir. Guile is checking us out on YouTube this time. Yeah, man. If you hadn't noticed, I'm going to slowly get off Zuckerberg's metaverse. I think it's gross. It makes me sick. If you listen to this, Mark Zuckerberg, you can kiss my ass if you like. You've already tried to destroy me once. Good luck with that. So yeah, man. So we're slowly sliding over to YouTube. It may take us a year to finally get everybody there, but please check us out over there. Tony says, I hope there's not a test after all this because this stuff is way over my head like a Chinese balloon. Speaking of which, we got
funny you mentioned the test, sir. We were going to wait till the end, but
well, and to his point, there is a balloon floating over the United States right now, but we have been told, don't worry, NORAD scrambled the fighter. The fighter eyeballed it while he was going about 700 knots, and he determined through his infinite wisdom that it poses no national security threat, and everybody can go back to sleep, even though they don't know what it is or where it came from. So I feel good about that.
Yep.
Insert
Right
sarcasm.
Right
Yeah.
here. Yep.
Yeah.
So the argument JP Morgan's making here is that the 11th through the 50th stocks are set to take off to catch up with the top 10. Well, you look back on this chart, I can only see one time where that really happened, where there was a big lag. And there's so much else that plays in it. What's the economy doing during that time? The one I'm looking at there is from 82 to 91. You can see they reversed their concentration there. But what was happening from 82 to 91? The entire market was taking off. Right. So instead of just a few stocks driving the market, the wealth was being spread around, if you will. All these companies were doing well. So
during the GFC, it looks like the 11th through the 50th.
During the recession itself. Yeah, because so this is the concentration chart. So the concentration went away from the top 10 and went more down to those. So, but that was more of a factor of the top 10 decreasing.
I gotcha.
So it's a relative deal. And anytime there's a stock market correction, crash, if you will, you're going to get rid of these concentrations because the capitalization weight of the higher ones are going to come down, because more people are going to sell those stocks off because more people were in them on the side. So one strategy out there used by some people, including myself at times, not financial advice, is if, like, let's just say right now, I really thought that XLK, we talked about earlier, that tech ETF, I really think tech's going to do well. Okay. And I did this in late 2020 and into 21. I would buy the XLK, and then I would go buy as well the top 3 stocks in that. So I'd get a little diversification by buying the ETF. Maybe that would be 5% of my portfolio would be that ETF, and then 1% in each of the top 3 stocks. Now, on the days it goes up, really good. On the days it goes down, not so happy. So it's one of those ones where you gotta believe in it, and you gotta really watch it. But then you see the opposite of that, though. If things start going down, I'm going to sell those individual stocks and sell the ETF. So that volatility is what starts to happen. That's what we saw happen in 2022 when the market was down 30%. So, and 23 was on track to do the same thing until the last 7 weeks. So, yep.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We were down in 23 until the last 7 weeks. We got, I think on the S&P, like an 11% return in 7 or 8 weeks. So we got over a year's worth of returns in 2 months. And it was all because bond yields went down. So people pulled their money out of bonds and put in the stock market. So, so watch those bond yields, interest rates, because that's driving the market right now, driving the money flows. So I digress.
Yeah. Ted Leonard says, well, before we get to Ted's comment, Freddie Mercury is on. Good morning, Freddie. Glad to have you, sir. Says the greatest Coffee with Rich is the greatest show on earth. Beats out Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. Fast Group says now on YouTube, guys, like and subscribe. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Ted, what does Ted say in there, Will?
The few massive tech stocks in government, without government keeping competition out, they would be in trouble. That's his view. You know, an interesting take on that is Tesla. Tesla, for the first lot of years they were in business, they made no money selling cars. There's it's not a carbon thing but each auto manufacturer gets something with the gas mileage. I always have to relook it up whenever I come back across it. But Tesla made most of their money selling off that carbon capability, if you will, to the other auto manufacturers. Yeah, that's where they made the vast majority of the money the first number of years. They also got an exemption to not have a dealership network that was independently owned. The big car manufacturers have to have independently owned dealerships. The factory can't own those dealerships. Tesla got an exemption from that. And that gives them a huge leg up because now when they sell those cars, all that money goes to Tesla. It doesn't get cut off into a dealership. So Tesla got themselves a lot of sweetheart deals that have helped lead to their financial success.
Good for them.
You know, and then you know, right now, one of the Elon Musk's big things right now is he's worried about interest rates and what that does to, you know, buying $80,000 cars that are relatively small.
Well,
cool
isn't
cars.
Isn't that what got GM in trouble, Will, back in the day, maybe the 70s and what have you, when you know, they happened to be a loan originator that just so happened to make cars, and the cars was just a vehicle to sell you a loan. Am I misrepresenting?
You know, it happened back then, and then they went down the same road during the housing bubble. GMAC Financing was making more money financing cars and homes than they were building cars.
Yeah,
that's
the
financialization of everything.
Yeah, not always a good thing. Stick around, guys. We got Will's going to give you his thoughts on if he were dictator for a day, how he'd fix the economy, and so is your old pal Rich Brown. Please, thank you for the 16 folks watching us, and like and hit that share button. Comment away, guys.
All right, so this one's from Game of Trades, corporate insider transaction ratio. So one of our corporate insiders, this would be I'm not sure how far down it goes. So your CEO, CFO, chairman of the board members, when they buy or sell their own company stock, that has to be reported, because the long held belief is, well, they know something. Well, it might be they just want to go buy a Tesla and need a little money. So you have to look at the ratio of buying to selling. And these people need money for their living expenses and their vacations to wherever. So they're going to sell some of their stock from time to time. But when it starts moving in one direction or another, that can be used as an indicator. So this chart, if corporate insiders are selling like crazy, well, do they see something coming?
Probably not. I mean, they just need money to go to Bohemian Grove or Davos or something like that, guys. Come on now.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, next slide. So, or if they're buying like crazy, that's an indicator that maybe you want to buy that stock too. Okay, so we can look at the history of this. This is a relatively short history. It goes back to January 23. Because this is something, looking back further, honestly doesn't do much good because there's different dynamics at play all the time here. But if we look at the ratio of corporate insider selling, look at that, brother. Boom. It has gone full Al Gore hockey stick here.
Yeah.
So what do they see coming? Because if you want to see what's coming with the economy, don't talk to the Fed, don't talk to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, don't talk to any of those guys. Watch what businesses are doing and what banks are doing. because they see these things long before they report corporate earnings, long before they see these flows coming. So so these insiders are seeing these numbers before most of the people in the company even do, right? So what this is a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle. It's just a piece of it. Okay. But when they start selling like this, I'm going to pay attention because what are they seeing?
Right.
They're not selling because they think it's going to go higher.
Exactly. Pat Cahill says U.S. senators and congressmen are among the biggest insider traders playing in the market, and
Yes.
I'm going to talk about that when I get to be dictator for a day. So stay tuned for that.
Looking forward to that. All right, so that sums that one up. So this is another piece of the puzzle. Okay, so this is my king for a day to-do list. Okay, now, and at first it starts with an adult conversation with the subjects. So I kind of harken back to JFK's. Ask not what you can do, what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, with a little twist here, and that is kind of think what you can do for your future generations, not what they can do for you. Because right now, that's what we've been doing for years, piling on the national debt. We're asking our future generations to pay for our comfort now.
You say it like it's a bad thing. Hold on a second.
Oh, okay. Let me try that again. Okay. Those ungrateful little weasels should pay for my comfort right now. So the thing here, guys, is, if we want our future generations to have it better than we have had it, which is the American dream, there's going to have to be sacrifice. And then we have to define that sacrifice. What's it going to mean? It means for the higher income earners, you're going to have to pay some more taxes. Now, I get this. I wouldn't trust them either if they said this. We're going to increase your taxes by 2.5% on income taxes. Just making up a number here. And that money is guaranteed to go towards the national debt. It will not go towards, Ukraine, fill in the blank, whatever you want. I wouldn't trust them either. Okay. So we're clear on that. And then for the lower income, it's like, okay, we're going to have to cut back on these programs too. And by the way, Social Security, Medicaid, it has to be an across the board thing. So also, we got to decrease policing in the world. We've got military bases in what? 140 out of 170.
And that's the one that we know about, man. They're everywhere.
Right. So that costs us a lot of money, time and treasure, American lives. Are we really getting a good return on that? There was a time in a post-World War II era to get the economy rebuilt so that shipping could happen. When I say the economy, I mean the worldwide economy rebuilt. Those things had to be done. There's a time and a place for everything. I don't think we're getting a good return on our investment in both money and the treasure of American lives. Term limits, got to have term limits, because everybody in DC is thinking about how to enrich themselves and how to get reelected versus doing what's right. Correct. You tell them that you get 2 terms and that's it. Period. Full stop. And that's also going to Pat Cahill's thing about the insider trading. Sorry, the dog's going nuts upstairs.
No, it's okay, man.
The insider trading thing, obviously we'd love to see that go away, but even if it stayed in, if they're only in for two terms, it's gonna decrease how much effect that has on them. Does that make sense? That's what I mean. And then the last thing I would do is flat tax. And I play the tax game hard. We've had businesses, and I would advocate for about a 15% flat tax, and it'd be so much easier. Now this will never happen in today's world, because this is the best tax code money can buy through political donations, and it's the game. But think about how much easier it'd be. 15% of your paycheck gets taken out, and then that's it. Done.
Instead of 40%.
Instead of 40%, well, that's where it starts at. You know as well as I do. That's not where it ends up at.
No.
Right? And where did I come up with 15%? If you look back historically, 15% of GDP ends up as federal tax revenue. And that doesn't matter. You can go back to when the highest marginal income tax rate was 90%, or when it was at its lowest under Reagan. It stays at about 15% plus or minus 1.5 percentage points. Because, yeah, back in the day, the highest marginal rate was 90%, but that's when you had you'd have a company car that you didn't pay anything for, and the company paid to put the gas in that. So and then when the rates went down, people had to start paying income tax on the value of those benefits. So it just leveled out. It really didn't change anything. It was all marketing and political ploys. So, and I ran across this. I didn't come up with this bottom line on my own. It was on Twitter somewhere, and I couldn't find it again to give proper attribution. So whoever that lady was, thank you. And she says, currently we are free range humans on a tax farm.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Man.
And that's what it is. If you think, I mean, every single thing you buy, you got taxed on that money, and then you're going to get taxed on that through sales tax, gas tax. And when you run down to, I don't know, go buy tires, you're going to pay for the diesel tax, the tax on the diesel for the truck that delivered the tires. And when you pay that business, they're paying their employees, and they had to pay all those taxes to get there. And the business is paying usually about 30% of their labor cost is, the Social Security, Medicare, state income tax, federal income tax. All that stuff gets piled on there, and it's just tax on top of tax.
No, 100%, brother. And thank you to the 19 folks watching this live. Please like and hit that share button. I'm going to ask you who you would vote for at the end of this. So so remember Will's platform, and here in just a second, you're going to see mine. But before we get into that, Gregory Cruz is on Semper Fi, brother. Tony, Semper Fi. And Semper Fi to all you Marines out there. And I say that because 33 years ago today, me and a few thousand of my brothers were storming the walls of Kuwait and rescuing that country from the Saddam Hussein's grip. So Semper Fi to all you folks out there that were part of that. Dr. T.C. Fuller was there with the Army. Sorry about that. You were in the Army, but hey, what are you going to do? But yeah, Semper Fi, guys. Let's see here. Fast Group says, pay off the debt, fire the administrative agencies, and defund Congress like it was intended to be. Gerald is on. Dr. Fuller says, I love the idea of a flat tax and would love to see one. It does make me wonder how many jobs and companies would be wiped out with the advent of a flat tax.
And that's one of whenever the flat tax kind of gets a little traction, the CPA, the accountant lobby, TurboTax donates a lot. Intuit, who owns TurboTax, they donate a lot of money through lobbying. They quash that real fast.
Yeah, Will says, I'm not a fan of the government gets more than God asked for. Yeah. Okay. All right. So here we go. Dictator for a day. The Rich Brown strategy. Thank you to the 21 folks watching us live. Fixing the economy and beyond. Because going back, Matt proposed this question to Will and I last Monday, and we had an opportunity to chew on it for a week. I think you got to define what the problem is. And the problem, as I see it, are three things. The government is the problem. Thank you, Reagan. He was absolutely right. The government is the problem. They're not the solution to any problem. Greg says, weren't you at Iwo Jima in February too? No, that was a little before my time.
Yeah. My grandfather was, though, however. Guadalcanal and Iwo. Yep. If I still have the knife with the brass knuckles that he carried there sitting up on my dresser in a frame. So, little piece of family history.
That is the coolest thing I've heard.
So, you going to make it there, brother?
I certainly hope so.
I hope so, too. All right. Let's see here. So, Alan
is the problem, brother.
Yep. I just brought Alan's comment up here. Let's hit that real fast. I also have heartburn with influencers from the state and local lawmakers who introduce laws that hurt the economy, particularly the minimum wage increases so workers can survive flipping hamburgers. Well, we should be encouraging further education of trades, tech, and professional careers. Did you see the California whatever Congress critter out there at the state level is proposing a $50 an hour minimum wage.
I did. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and the idea is that that's enough money to get people to move back to California. It's like, first off, it's not, and this is something. Okay, so we can say, oh, the guy flipping burgers making $50 an hour. Well, but it cascades through because, let's say it's somebody's at a job making $30 an hour, and their supervisor is making 50. Well, suddenly that guy who's slinging drywall mud is making 50 instead of 30. The supervisor is going to go, I'm not happy at 50. I want 70, 75. I want the same percentage, right? And then the guy who's the, I don't know, the higher up than him who is making 75 is going to be like, no, I want 90, 95, 100 an hour. And it just cascades up. And then the businesses adjust the prices and you've made more money, but all you've really done is just keep everything the same. It takes a while to shuffle out. And at first it feels really good for the people to get that huge raise. But in the end, and I say in the end, year, 2 years later, right back to the same quality of life. It's just the numbers changed.
Yeah, I think somebody needs to send that Congress critter, Dr. Thomas Sowell's book, Basic Economics, A Common Sense Guide to the Economy, because he evidently didn't get the memo. That's not how this works.
Yeah, and maybe
and they're up there making policy, brother.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we see it on the, as gun guys, we see it when you see these people get up there, this 30 caliber clip. It's like, seriously, you can't even do some basic research to get the terminology right. And I'm supposed to trust you? Really? Exactly. Yeah.
No, don't trust them at all. So the government is the problem. Trade policies are part of the problem. Student loan debt is a huge problem. So I know this is busy, and this is almost at order of importance. Reduce government spending. The way you do that, reduce the size, and you'll reduce spending. And also
because we know from Reagan that reducing the income when he cut the tax rates didn't reduce the size of the government, just increased the size of the debt over time, right? Because they discovered, hey, if we promise to lower taxes, we can take this debt on, get reelected, and nobody cares about the debt, right?
Right.
So I agree. It's got to go that direction.
Yeah. Number one thing I do, repeal the 16th Amendment, abolish the IRS, eliminate federal income tax, period, full stop. No flat tax, no nothing. And I'm going to talk about how we do that and still fund the government in the slides to come. But let's get this out of the way. Ron Paul, his father was right. Second thing I'm going to do, repeal the 17th Amendment. States will select their senators again. Yes, there was some problems before that led to the 17th Amendment. I think we can get around those with knowing what was the problem before, okay? Campaign finance reform. I'm not even sure what this would look like because these assholes build so many loopholes into every damn piece of legislation that has come before it. Mm-hmm. I try to cut this apart and disentangle it. Every piece of campaign finance reform has so many loopholes. You can drive 20 Mack trucks through it, so it doesn't do anything. Term limits. You and I are violent agreement on this. 2 4-year terms for the state selected Senate and the House. Because the House right now, if it's 2-year terms, man, they're just constantly running a reelection campaign. Mm-hmm. Yep. They don't give a shit about you, man. They're trying to get reelected. Yep. We're going to make it simple. You're going to be in there 4 years. You can do 2 years because if you look at the percentage of incumbents that get reelected, it averages around 90%. Yep. Every single term, which makes it incredibly hard for any new blood to come in there if they're winning at 90%. And there's a whole host of reasons why they're winning at 90%. So this is the way you guarantee new blood is coming in. Term limits is a must. The second thing, we're going to balance the federal budget amendment. The House will balance the annual federal budget, or they will be immediately and forcibly removed from office. Additionally, they will limit spending to no more than 15% of GDP. There you go, Will. Okay. And require a supermajority vote in both the House and Senate before increasing the national debt ceiling. Deficits may only be run by Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11, which is the declaration of war by Congress. So unless we're in a state of declared war, you ain't raising shit, period.
And the last time that happened was World War II.
Correct. Because we're doing this needless war thing, and we stop that with this right here.
It's all about the money, brother.
All about the money. Stock trading, lifetime ban on individual stock and bond trading by Americans elected to any office, state, local. I don't give a shit if you're the elected official of Pig Knuckle, Arkansas. You ain't trading stocks and bonds. You can do a mutual fund just like the rest of us, but you ain't doing stocks and bond trading. That's completely out. And that goes for your immediately family members. And if they say, well, damn, I want to keep trading stocks and bonds, I guess you can't run for office.
Yep.
Businesses,
we know where the priorities are then, right?
exactly,
And,
right?
and you can still build a comfortable retirement never owning an individual stock.
Exactly. Businesses owned and or operated by elected officials and their families will also be banned from stock and bond trading. Annual unannounced audits to ensure compliance, life sentences for any violation. You want to spend the rest of your life in prison? Let me catch you trading a stock or a bond. And part of this audit thing is you won't have the Biden crime family with 23 different shell companies or 22 or whatever it is that provide no goods, that provide no services, and nobody knows what they do. So we're gonna cut that crap out once and for all. Size reduction: reduce the size of the federal government. That goes for GS and SES employees by 20%, and reduce or eliminate federal agencies by 30%. There's so many needless agencies out there. It's staggering to think of what they're doing.
And to that, in the news, and I'm kind of talking out of an anatomically dark place because I didn't research it, but Malay down in Argentina, I believe it's been 9 weeks he's been in office, and he's balanced the budget. I read a headline on it, so if that's wrong, guys, don't take that as gospel. But it's he's if he hasn't balanced, he's made significant progress that way. So it can be done, but the people have to get angry enough to elect someone like him first.
Yeah. So. Ted says, thinking of crowding, number 5 solves most of the issues. Yes, it does.
Yep.
Let's see. Executive orders limit 3 per year in office, subject to congressional review with a 2/3 majority to overturn them.
Excellent idea.
We got to stop this legislation by fiat, man. And you just cannot have presidents coming in there doing this kind of stuff. Can they do some? Yes. Should they? Absolutely. But you got 3 bullets a year. Make sure they really are important.
Yep.
Sorry for the coughing, guys. Election integrity. This is huge, man. Votes for elections must be cast in person with state or federal issued ID. Absentee ballots or mail-in ballots are for deployed U.S. service members only. The Heritage Foundation ranked elections, and Tennessee was number 1 because I hear about all this stuff going on, and I'm like, it doesn't happen in Tennessee. I go there, I show my ID, my voter registration card. They look me up on the thing. You still live in 3593, blah, blah, blah. I am. Check it off. And then they literally like hand me to somebody or they give me a chip or something. I walk in, and then I get a sticker. There's a whole lockstep process. So I feel very confident about our elections in Tennessee. Can't say that for most of the blue states. And I'm just telling you about the rankings, folks. Don't shoot the messenger here. So election integrity is incredibly important. As a deployed Marine, I have voted via absentee ballot. And every military unit overseas has a voter registration officer that will take care of that for you. Outside of that, ain't happening. But that means Granny, who's 600 pounds, can't get off the couch. You can't vote. Sorry, lose weight. Do something else. Have somebody carry you there. I don't care, but you got to show up.
If it's that important, everybody will find a way.
Amen. Migration. Make English the official language. Period. Full stop. Build the wall, deport, 0 funding for migrants and asylum seekers. Because I think we need to disincentivize coming here. If you know you're going to get a room in the Savoy and a $10,000 credit card to go blow and plenty of cops to beat up in the streets of New York City, you're going to keep doing it. You got to disincentivize that. You're going to starve in the street if you come here because we're going to give you nothing.
And I just saw an interesting thing. Speaking of that, during the Great Depression, there were mass deportations of Mexican.
That is correct.
And I'm assuming they came here illegally back then, but it was FDR did it. Hoover did it. It went all the way through Eisenhower because they were trying to, create more job openings for Americans.
Right.
So this is not without historical precedent on both Team Red and Team Blue.
Correct. Number 11, complete and total energy independence by 2030. and then we won't care what the Middle East is doing. Craig says, "Do you mean a form of English?" Yeah,
We're just two people separated by a common language. So
that's exactly right.
yeah, yep.
Who said that? Bernard Russell?
I don't remember who said
Yeah.
that, but they were right.
Yeah, they were. Lawfare, number 12, in the weaponization of district attorneys and the DOJ. I don't know how to do that, guys, but to think that you can have a district attorney that runs on her platform is, I'm going to destroy Donald Trump. Vote for me if you want to destroy this human being. And that's your political platform and people vote for you. And then you do that and you have immunity when you do that. That is just wrong.
Yep.
That
Everybody
is
talks
really
about
ethically wrong.
Everybody, after say Ferguson and George Floyd, everybody talks about cops and qualified immunity. Let's talk about district attorneys and judges with absolute immunity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it, but fixing the federal government is number one. Let's talk about repealing the 16th Amendment, abolishing the IRS. It was ratified, of course, in 1913 when the amendment granted Congress the power to collect income taxes on individuals and corporations. But before the adoption, we collected most of our revenue, because how did the federal government operate before 1913? I mean, they just run around broke? Hell no. But how they did it was from tariffs and revenues. We need to go back to that. Because unlike 1913, today, most Americans pay some federal income tax instead of the 71 million collected in 1913. Think about that. That's all they collected in 1913. $71 million, all they collected. Now you're looking at collecting over 500 billion in income taxes annually, plus another 117 billion from corporations. The 15-page tax code that we had back in 1913 is now over 1,000 pages. So I want to do a little math too, man. If you look 1913 to 2024, the inflation increase has been 3,015%. The federal income tax increase is double that. Anybody see a problem with that?
Yeah, I'm just doing a little math here. So 71 million in 1913, right? So that is, see, there's lots of numbers here, guys. Yep, the number matches up exactly with your 3,015% inflation. So that's like 2 trillion today.
Yeah, it's insanity. So, I said in tax slavery, but I like yours. We're free range humans on a tax farm. And that's exactly right. So you can see it wasn't always like this, guys. It wasn't always like this. So we need to go back. But how do we do that? We're going to talk about that in just a second. With trade policies. Trade policies should not favor foreign companies at the expense of American companies, or provide an incentive for American companies to go overseas. This is insane. And I'll provide you with this right here. Once highly protective, U.S. tariffs are much lower today. Because think about this. Congress goes, I need money. Where am I going to get it from? I can let all the trade in the world come in and tax cattle here in America, or, instead of doing a little bit of both.
Right.
That's what they should have done. They've chosen not to do it at all. And really, Congress has left, they have the power for tariffs, but they've kind of left that up the executive branch, is where it should not be. Congress will control tariffs as part of the balanced federal budget, which is why it's doubly important to restrict their ability to profit from stock and bond trading. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, because then they can, they're influenced by fill in the blank company that is overseas, and they can turn around and buy that stock just like they do domestically. So then of course the double whammy there is it's hurting the American people, but they're cashing in on the stock.
Correct. Trade tariffs will restore balance and drive the U.S. economy to produce. And says even now tariffs are a tiny portion of U.S. government revenue. Remember, the government funds itself through the tariffs that it puts on other countries and other goods and services coming from abroad. Does that mean that if we raise tariffs, that now Rich Brown won't be able to get his Biscoff cookies from Belgium at a reasonable price? I may still buy them. Yeah. The Irish butter, the French wine that I enjoy, it may go up. But guess what? I'll start doing? I'll start drinking the Napa Valley wine.
Yep. And, on your chart here on the right, I'd like to dig in that a little bit. U.S. goods and services trade balance. Look what happened after NAFTA.
Oh, yeah.
And that was put in by Clinton and approved by Congress. And that was supposed to help the American workers.
It crushed it. And look at
Yes.
once China joins the World Trade Organization,
Yep.
it's just like it fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
So U.S. tariff as a percentage of revenue, 1795 through May of 2019. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't use that tool anymore, and it is a powerful tool that we have
Yep.
at our disposal.
And that is sucking money out of our economy, because when you go buy something that's made overseas, that money flows overseas. So and then that leads to all the other problems we have within the federal deficit, because they had to come up with more money somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And so my point of here is the U.S. merchandise trade balance, 1895 to 2015, and you can see where we are now. We got to level this back out, guys. We got to level it back out, or there's no incentive to keep American companies.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, man, this is the third one that I would do to fix everything. This student loan debt. Total federal student loan borrowers, there's 43 million Americans. That's almost 20% of the people over 18 have student loan debt to one degree or another. Total outstanding federal student loan debt is almost $2 trillion, and it's only going one direction.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, like, okay, Rich, screw them. I don't have student loan debt. My children don't have student loan debt because Lisa and I made sure that they wouldn't. This is just, I don't want to saddle them and ruin their life because of the following things. This is how it affects the U.S. economy, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to fix the U.S. economy. Fewer new businesses can start because these kids are saddled with so much debt. Lower rates of home ownership. You can't buy a home if you're paying $700 or $800 a month or $1,000 a month on your damn student loan debt.
Yep.
Struggle amid economic distress. Any little bit of bump in the U.S. economy, and these people are underwater, and they cannot declare bankruptcy to get out from underneath it. Reduction in consumer spending. They have to spend less because they're paying down student loan debt.
And we can prove that during the pandemic, when those payments were suspended, people went out and spent the money, and it helped juice the economy back up after the lockdowns.
That's correct. Yeah, absolutely. And it impacts on their ability to save for retirement. Okay. This is a huge one, man. If you're spending $800 a month for 10 years, what does that do to your ability to save for your future? Wipes it out.
Yep.
So disempower students, and herein lies my fix. I just want to show you this is a pretty telling graph from 2003 until 2020. Look what student loan debt has done.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about credit cards, man.
Yeah.
But credit cards are nothing compared to student loan debt.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. That's also the old adage: cheap money makes expensive things. The student loans were always very cheap, and no payments until you graduate, and also your target market is young, inexperienced people. Yeah, mom and dad can give a little guidance, should give a little guidance. However, they're over 18, they can sign the papers.
Yep, that's right. So here's how we're going to fix it. I got a 2-pronged attack. One is from the government side, and one is what we're going to do to academia. In the discussions on student loan debt forgiveness, not going to happen. No executive orders, no congressional pandering, no politicization. You're paying the damn money back, period, full stop. Well, and I know you may think like, wow, that doesn't make sense with what you just said, how harmful it is. And yet you're saying we're not going to forgive these guys and gals. Absolutely not. Here's how we're going to, I'm going to give you one little caveat. We got a military recruitment crisis, and we have a student loan debt crisis. I'm going to put the damn two things together and fix it for everybody. If you serve 4 years or more honorably in an active component of any branch of service, or 8 years honorably in the National Guard or Reserve component, 50% of your student loan debt will be erased, half being funded by the college and half being funded by your old pal, Uncle Sam. And I'm going to let you pay the other remaining 50% of your student loan debt at 0% interest. Fail to complete your term of enlistment or receive anything other than an honorable discharge, and you will reacquire the 50% student loan debt, and you're going to accrue all the back interest. You're welcome, right?
Yep.
So there's incentive. You better get your ass in there and do everything right.
Yep. Now,
here's the thing. A lot of these folks graduating with a gender studies degree that can't pay anything back, they're what I call unenlistable because they're overweight or they're unhealthy or whatever. I'm going to solve all that. All waivers for student loan debt forgiveness will be approved. You got no problem. I don't care if you're old, sick, lame, lazy. We got a job waiting for you to do something. No exemptions. You're welcome to come in. Student loan debt enlistments are not eligible for the Montgomery GI Bill so they can get their doctorate. They get none of that. They don't get any enlistment bonuses of $50,000, which is what most of the services are given for enlistments. You get nothing other than an enlistment incentive program, meaning you get to pick what job you're going to do. So here's what I'm getting at. Like in the state of Tennessee, the average student loan debt is around $38,000.
Okay.
That's the average. We're giving incentives for kids to enlist right now for 4 years. They're getting $50,000 right out of the gate. All I'm proposing is we're giving that money away anyway. Let's give it to the student loan debt guy, and it's probably going to turn out cheaper because I'm only going to do 50%. So that's my dictator for a day.
And you're going to get the other half of it back. Even at 0% interest, you're ahead versus just cutting a check.
Exactly. Let's say Gerald says, I don't want debt, so I went to community college. Yeah.
Yep. And back to Gerald's point here, if we could, if the student loan was harder to get, they would owe less. If you think back in the day, you could work summers and pay for your college, and the colleges had to be competitive on what they could charge because there was no way to get cheap and easy money. Well, the government took care of that.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Craig says, I live on the edge of Sherwood Forest. We had a guy called Robin Hood years ago that solved this problem. It's time we had another guy do the same. Well, that's your old pal, Rich Brown. You're welcome. Fast Group says, don't forget the law of unintended consequences. Yeah. So we've got the second side of this. That is what we're going to do to academia. Because academia right now is like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Government needs to solve this problem. No. We're going to require colleges to co-sign the loan. So does Rich Brown look like a good loan candidate? I don't know. He mean Rich Brown's part of my diversity, equity, inclusion, diversity quota. Okay, great. Then sign for his ass.
Yep.
You want him in that bad? Not a problem. Co-sign the loan for him. So now you're going to be on the dime if he stops paying.
Yep. College
admissions will co-author a business plan with a prospective student on how the degree is going to be used. And if you do a business plan and it shows the kid that you're going to show him, you're going to lose your ass on this.
Yep.
And maybe he will go to plumbing school or learn to be a bricklayer and decide not to be a gender studies major. The next thing we're going to do with academia, reintroduce the gainful employment rule. And that is a college program that fails both the debt to earnings and discretionary income ratio will receive a filling status and receive no student loan funding.
Well, I like it.
Yeah. Lastly, colleges, as I said before, will pay half of the student loan debt for veterans who serve honorably. So Mark says in Australia, they take a student's debt payment out of their tax returns. Yeah, but I don't even. Yeah, I mean, you obviously you could do that. That has unintended consequences as well. What is
that happens here as well if a person is behind on those payments. So I'm not sure. Kind of, sort of happens here. Dr. Fuller says he had student loans and he paid them off. Good for you, brother. Same with his bride. Then he gave the FBI 2-year service for every year of his doctorate they paid for. So yeah, so there's a return on an investment there for the employer. In this case, happened to be the FBI.
Yeah, and 33 years ago, I dodged Scud missiles so that I could get my college paid for. You know what I'm saying? And I want to open that opportunity up to other proud patriots who have gender studies degrees that can't make any money and pay back their student loans. I'm going to give you the opportunity to dodge IEDs in a foreign country. So
you're trying to be inclusive.
See what I'm saying?
Wow, look at you go. So, Alan Kelly here says, let me get the right spot here. He says he paid the money in for his daughter's student loan debt. Nobody helped him or his daughter. Good on you, brother. I mean, that's the way it should be done, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Don't be beholden to these.
Right now, it's a damn political football, and that's why I say it ain't going to happen. So finally, how we do it with election integrity, I want everybody out there to get out there. Don't let Trump cheat. Demand voter ID and paper ballots everywhere.
Yep.
Okay. If the left is so concerned with Trump cheating, then left, get on board. Don't let let Donald Trump steal this election. Demand voter ID and paper ballots.
Absolutely. So, and that's what we have here in Wisconsin as well. I got to go show my ID. I live in a small town. I walk up, they know who I am. They need to see your ID. Absolutely. No problem at all.
Yeah. And this is the only graph you need to see: trust in government and knowledge of history right there.
Yep. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
That is a truism right there.
Yeah. So that's if Rich Brown were a dictator for a day. You're welcome, America. Elect Rich Brown to office and we'll get this thing sorted out.
Yep, absolutely. So heck, I'm going to vote for you.
Get rid of that 16th Amendment, man. Put some tariffs and build back America better.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's you've got so many great points in there. So it's hard to pick one to talk about, but I think the tariffs would be the one that I'd be most in favor of there.
I mean, look what Trump did with tariffs. I mean, whatever you want. He put people on notice, man. Let's all vote for Rich twice each. My grandfather, Ralph Brown, he was still in, back there in the Depression. They were given, I don't know if it was a bottle of whiskey or a shot of whiskey. So he voted God knows how many times in one day.
Well, I mean, there's some incentivizing right there.
Yeah. So, let's see. Ted says, mail this to your senators and representatives. Well, there you go. Guile says, vote for Brown 2024. Will Parker, I'll text President Trump and recommend both of you to be advisors. Matt, vote Rich. Well, Matt, thank you for throwing this academic exercise out there, man. It was fantastic.
Yeah, really I shirked my responsibility and Rich crushed it. So there you go.
I couldn't stop once I'm like, okay, I get to do whatever I want. Then I'm going to fix this place.
So
that's all I got.
The other thing I would outlaw is the designated hitter in Major League Baseball, but that I didn't put that on the list, but it would be on there. So yeah. Here, let me because I really enjoyed this particular one. There we go.
Oh yeah. Well, that didn't work.
An abbreviated history of communism. So yep, it just hasn't been done right yet. That's the problem. So
remember, as Dr. Fuller says, you can vote your way into communism. We got to shoot your way out.
That's it. And of course, that's why they want to take the guns away. So you don't have that option, right?
That's right.
So yeah, great show, brother. I love that slide deck. That was awesome.
Thanks, man. Will, you want to close us out, my friend?
Sure. Fight's coming. Be ready.